Welcome to the eCommerce Expert Podcast, where we get up close and personal with the superheroes of e-commerce, getting them to reveal their most profitable tactics and strategies to help you level up your e-commerce game. So fasten your seatbelt and get ready for an info-packed ride with your host, e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing OG, Derek Gale.
Welcome to another episode of the eCommerce Expert Show. This is your host, Derek Gale, and today we are going to be digging into a topic that is near and dear to my heart and should be, if you're in the e-com space, your heart as well, and that is Google Shopping. And today's guest, actually, pretty excited about this one. This is a guy that I've been working with now for almost 5 years. And I can say, you know, when you look back over your career as an entrepreneur, I've hired and unfortunately fired quite a few as well of people, hundreds over my business, more hiring than firing, obviously. But, you know, there's those people that come along that are just game changers and the kind of people that you just don't want to lose him in your business. And this is one of those. And he is my director of customer acquisition. Anything that has to do with new customer acquisition, media buying, this is the guy that runs it for me. Every single month, I trust this guy with literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that he invests in media and has been one of the key drivers in growing my companies, 50% a year, year over year. And that being said, he's got a history that's dating back almost 20 years. He's worked for different brands on paid acquisition, growing those brands. And so I'm super excited about our conversation today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ramon Boone to the show. Ramon, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. That's quite an intro.
Yeah. Don't let it go to your head.
I'm gonna save that one for later.
Yes. In fact, we actually, just the two of us, we just got back from Vegas. We were at a conference together,
right.
an e-com conference. And, as someone who's planning an e-com conference coming up here I think I'm 6 weeks away. And I'm doing a free, just as a side note, guys, I'm doing a free 3-day live conference down in just outside of DC, and it's called the eCom Growth Summit. Okay, it's going to be 3 days free. I'm trying to build a community of e-com entrepreneurs. And just a side note, before we get to the whole Google, I just talk about this for a second. Before we get into the Google Shopping, I want to mention this. If you are an e-com entrepreneur that's doing at least $500,000 or more a year, and you've been in that business for at least a year, and you want to scale to 7 or 8 figures, you need to be at this event. This is going to be 3 days, intense, experts, other very successful e-com entrepreneurs sharing their latest, greatest strategies, because I'm trying to build a community. And guys, I'm paying for the whole thing. It's not going to cost you anything to attend this event. So just a side note, if you want to learn more about this, go to ecomgrowthsummit.com and check it out. All information is there. But the reason I got on this is, Ramon, you and I were just down in Vegas at an e-com summit, right. Or not a summit. It's just an e-com conference. I'm going to not name the name of the conference. It was
disappointing.
Yeah, it was very disappointing.
There's these shows that you go to, and it's all a big sales pitch trying to get you as a customer. And we kind of felt that this was not going to be the case with this one. And I was really excited to see some of the people that are there. They're sort of like in the industry and hands-on. But ultimately, they were just giving very superficial information that really doesn't help anybody.
No, the first two speakers, it started off and I was like, wow, this is really good. Some good stuff. I was taking notes. After that, it just fell off a cliff and I was like, it just wasn't great. And look, that's one of the things I'm trying to do different with our eCom Growth Summit is pre-screening everybody that's going to be there to make sure everybody in the room is high level. And the people that are presenting, including myself, are sharing real tactical stuff that you can take away and actually use to scale that business. And it's not a sales pitch, right? There's no agencies there. It's about, sharing real value and building a killer community. So, that was a bit of a letdown, but Vegas is always fun for a couple of days.
For sure.
All right, dude, we need to talk about Google Shopping. So, our adventure with Google Shopping over the last, I don't know, 4 years has been interesting. And Google Shopping and Google AdWords, kind of the whole Google ecosystem, right? And it's evolved a lot since we started there. And I think, we're spending over $100,000 a month now on ads there. It's an interesting platform for us. We have campaigns that are, really positive ROAS, money makers. We've got other ones that we're just using for, customer acquisition, right? And break even. Now, I think the best place for us to start, and I want to pick your brain on, is PerformanceMax. Like, I think this is the most controversial thing.
It sure is. I mean, it's a shiny new thing, right? So the shiny object everybody's talking about right now. And I don't know, if I put a lot of thoughts into that one and sort of what does it mean to be on Performance Max and who is it really for? I'm equating Performance Max to sort of the early days of Facebook when Facebook was really, 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 really powerful. Because, before the scrutiny of privacy, before iOS, changes, it really had a lot of data on people, and you were able to, as a marketer, to reach the right audience at the right time. And I think that Google has really gotten to a point where they're there now with Performance Max. Google before was just a search engine, and you had the ability to reach people that are searching for your stuff. Now with Performance Max, you're actually getting the intelligence that is behind the user experience through all the Google platforms. Someone that goes on Google Maps and search for something, they're on Gmail, they go to YouTube. You now have all these interconnected ecosystem that Google has created, which, imagine the amount of data they're getting from people. I think it's way more powerful than what Facebook had back at the time when their golden days, right? So that's where I think Google's really got it right with Performance Max. They're basically bringing in that sort of ecosystem marketing platform, which is what Facebook has always been.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny, for years, like Facebook's taken all this flack about, privacy and stuff like that, and the iOS crackdown really hurt Facebook. And meanwhile, Google's the one that is the scariest. I mean,
don't tell anyone, because then they're going to start looking at them. They've kind of been flying under the radar, I think, in a lot of ways.
And I don't know how they fly under the radar, because they are, when you think about it, Google knows more about every human, their deepest, darkest, dirtiest secrets, than Facebook. I mean, Facebook, when you think about it, Facebook is a polished version of who we are, right? What we put out there on Facebook, I mean, it's everybody's trying to show them their best self out there, and interest and stuff like that. But I mean, you think about Google. Google knows before your spouse does if you're getting a divorce. 100%. Google knows if you're depressed. Google knows if you're thinking about changing jobs. Google knows if you're why? Because we all go to this stupid little box on Google and tell it our deepest, darkest desires.
Yeah, and don't forget the second biggest search engine, YouTube, right? Like they got both.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so the amount of stuff you go on YouTube to search for, to learn 100%. Something new or whatever it might be, it knows where you're actually getting into. What Absolutely. Your new habits are going to be.
Yep. And well, I mean, if you think about it too, let's talk about Chrome. Right.
Absolutely.
And Android, right? Like we use this browser, like, I mean, they know exactly where I'm, what sites I've been to. And we're always logged into our Google accounts.
100%. Yeah. Single sign on, and it becomes natural, right? Everybody is, the amount of data we're feeding Google is way more than I think Facebook has ever been able to record on people. And the fact that, again, they're flying under the radar in a lot of ways, it's really powerful for marketers to be able to take advantage of that. So
let's just dig into Performance Max a little bit here, because I think there's always a little bit of confusion, right? Like, what's the actual feature difference between Performance Max and the previous generation?
Yeah, so what they're doing,
which was called what? I'm
Smart
blanking.
Search, right?
Smart
so
search,
you have Smart Search, which was better than regular search, because it lets the algorithm figure out what your customers are searching for.
Yeah.
But it's still just very search focused. Whereas Performance Max is now, it's a marketing tool for the entire ecosystem. So you have display ads, you have video ads, you have text search ads, and you have shopping.
Mhm.
And so, yes, for certain e-commerce vendors or for certain companies, Performance Max may not be the right answer, because if you're just focused on search and you have one keyword that you're marketing to, yeah, you don't really need Performance Max. But if you have video ads, if you have display, if you have audience that you can remarket to, which a lot of the e-commerce companies will have. Like if you're selling a product, Performance Max is a great tool, because you're going to get in front of the people that are searching on YouTube. You're going to get in front of the people that have some Gmail ads
Mhm.
popping up. You're going to get in front of your existing audience with marketing,
Yeah.
and then shopping, which is a great tool to help reinforce your brand. Right, and when a customer sees your product sitting right there, the photo of your product on top of Google, there's
Yeah.
nothing more powerful than that.
Yeah, look, I think shopping I think is the highest ROAS, segment of any of the Google advertising mechanisms out there, simply because, you type in the products right there, which is amazing.
For sure.
Now,
And that's what
just
Performance does. Performance Max is merging that shopping element. It's merging with all the other elements. So like if you're on YouTube, you're going to get shopping ads, which before didn't exist. You couldn't see a
sure.
shopping ad there.
Sure. Okay. So shopping ads are now existing. If they think you're interested in this by some other activity, it shows up there.
Exactly.
Now, so question then, and this is actually, I'm curious about this. When you enroll in Performance, and guys, I got to say it, Ramon does all this for me, so I I have to dig into his expertise on this too. And just as a side note, everybody who's listening, this is where you want to get to when you can have someone like Ramon that's just smart and does it all for you. So when you get into Performance Max, like it'll push out all over these channels. Can you opt in and out of the channels you want it to be
Absolutely.
on, but still stay in Performance Max?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way Performance Max works is and by the way, you don't really enroll in it. They kind of force you into it. They've been forcing a lot of people into it. This is the new normal. You can always enroll out of it and get out and go back to smart shopping or whatever your previous campaign was. But when you are into Performance Max, you can choose what asset groups you're giving them. So if you don't want to be in video, you just don't provide any videos, and
Right.
it won't go in that space. If you don't want to run any banner ads, it just don't give any banner ads. So the power though comes in is when you give it the most amount of assets, right? When you give the most amount of information that it can to do a better job at marketing, and you give it constraints to say, okay, I want to hit a return on ad spend of 2.5, 3 times, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
It will be smart enough to go out there and figure out where it should be spending the money on. It's not going to just dump money on display that may not work. It will try to find where your audience is most likely to convert. And again, it's the whole idea, right? Hitting the right person at the right time, and that's really what it's trying to do. Now, that's not to say that it's perfect. In a lot of ways, it's limiting. You
Yeah.
lose the ability to do manual targeting. You lose the ability to do manual bidding. Right? These are all things you can do on your regular shopping campaign, even on smart shopping campaign or a smart search campaign that you just cannot do with Performance Max. You lose that. So you have to trust the system a little bit. But my experience has been that 9 out of 10 times it outperforms what you could do manually.
So, and this is interesting because we've gone through this process, and I remember you and I having the conversations of, oh my God, you were stressed about us being pushed into this, right? But there's a learning period. So
100%.
So let's talk about that. Like, I mean, when we moved our campaigns over, we did see a drop, right?
Yeah, we did, and it's not just a learning period. It's more like, I think, you become more aware of what it can do. Because when we first switched, we really just thought it was an extension of shopping. So
yeah,
we didn't give it any assets. You just let it compete on shopping.
Yeah,
and if it just becomes an extension of shopping, really can't do much more than what
shopping
was doing.
Yeah,
right. Smart shopping was already fairly smart. It's when you start realizing that, hey, this is also a retargeting tool, right? This is also a tool that I can reach my same audience searching for my product now on different platforms. Then you start realizing the more information you give it, the better it becomes. And so, yeah, over time, and even I'm sure the algorithm behind the scenes is getting better, right? They're improving things as they add more things
I'm
to
sure
it. So.
It's learning. So when you say the more information you give it, do you mean the more assets you give it?
The more assets. The more assets, the more freedom.
Yeah.
The more assets, the more freedom you give it. And also, taking a step back and looking at there are certain products that will convert better on Performance Max versus the standard shopping. And so it's figuring out what those are and making sure that those are part of your Performance Max campaign. And you don't have to. I mean, it's you kind of have to pick one or the other. But if you have multiple products, you could choose certain products to stay on smart shopping or smart search, and just segment certain products into your Performance Max. The ones that say your biggest acquisition drivers, right? The products that are your sort of loss leaders, they may be better to be on Performance Max, because then Performance Max can go there and actively recruit new clients.
Now, refresh my memory. We had a couple of topical products in our health line that were doing really well. Then we moved into Performance Max, and they dropped substantially. Did they not?
Yeah,
And they were almost loss leaders for us, like pulling in thousands of customers a month.
And a lot of times that comes back to your targets, right? So like if you give Performance Max a very tight target, it's going to find the products that have the best chance of doing that, right? Of reaching that success. So that's why you got to kind of figure out which are the products that you can let be a little more aggressive on, and those are the ones you put on Performance Max. The stuff that's a little more conservative may be better suited for a smart shopping or smart search campaign, where you need to have a little bit more control.
Right. And so, I guess what we've ended up doing, and I think a lot of people kind of probably are going to go down that road, is segmenting your campaigns and having different campaigns at different ROAS levels, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve.
That's right. And that was the great thing about the previous just standard campaigns that you could do before, is you could set targets based on individual keywords. You can say, okay, this keyword, spend this much. This keyword, spend this much. For this keyword, for this product, I want this much return on ad spend. You can no longer do that with Performance Max. So what you end up having to do is you end up having to create multiple campaigns. And those campaigns then have the products inside of them that you want to have targets set. That it is more complicated, and I think that's maybe the biggest pain point for a lot of people switching to Performance Max. They realize, hey, I don't have all the bidding tools and all the segmentation I could do previously with my old campaigns. Now it's all in one bucket. But the reality is that you can still have separate buckets set up for each one of these products, right? So you could have your high return on ad spend products, you can have your low return on ad spend products, and you can separate them into different campaigns. You can also take Performance Max and do a Performance Max for United States, a Performance Max for Canada. You can separate into countries and geos. So it doesn't have to be all in one pot.
Right. And I think for the most part, unless you're running a single SKU or, a couple different SKUs that have the same kind of margin and the same, goal, I think most people are going to need to do that work. And it's not
exactly, you nailed it there. It's about goals, right? Like if you have different goals for your different products, then you're going to have to separate into multiple campaigns. But if your goal is the same, if you're expecting a certain ROAS for all your products to be the same, then throwing them all into one campaign makes total sense. Right. And I'll say another cool thing about Performance Max is it has the ability to target and focus on new client acquisition. So there's a flag there that you can set that says, okay, Performance Max, I'm willing to get 200% ROAS, but I want it to be all new clients. And so what it does then at that point, it ignores people that you have had conversions in the past and focuses only on brand new clients that never bought your products before.
Right. So curious then, when you take a single product, here's the problem. When you take a single product that has brand recognition, you have brand searches, right? Brand searches should just convert, right?
That's right.
Do we separate those out from our non-brand keywords?
Yeah, and in our case, we have a bunch of standard text search campaigns. They're completely separate from our Performance Max. So we've kept those completely separate because text search is going to be your easiest conversion path. These people are already ready to buy. They're searching for your product, right? So those, we keep them on standard search campaigns. It's the stuff that's really focused on acquisition, right? The big, broad keywords. Those are the stuff that's a little bit harder to control on a just standard campaign. So Performance Max does a really good job at that because it knows that people are searching for these broader terms. They don't really know what product to buy, and it gets the product in front of them. And then it still retargets based on text search keywords. So if someone learns about your brand and goes back to Google and searches for your brand, the Performance Max campaign is still going to try to hit them because it brought them in through the broader term. But that's different than just a very targeted searching for your brand, here, click buy, right? That's a different type of campaign.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I bring that up is I wonder if people sometimes fall into the trap where they just throw everything to Performance Max. It pulls in brand campaigns, brand keywords, which makes the ROAS look freaking amazing.
And that's what it's going to do. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
way around that. It's going to focus on what's the least pain point to
Yeah.
convert, the path of least resistance. But again, the more information you give it, the more budget you give it, the more it's going to go out there and explore these other segments that are maybe not ready to buy right now, but you're hitting them at the top of
Sure.
funnel and eventually kind of nurturing them into a conversion.
So, this is an interesting rabbit hole to go down to, because we learned something kind of interesting as well. And that was, and I hear a lot of people say, well, I don't want to pay Google for people that are already searching for my brand, right? So they exclude brand search. But one of the things that we noticed on one of our campaigns is we're buying media elsewhere. We shut down Google Shopping, but we watched our overall, sales drop. We thought, well, people are just searching for brand after they see the ad. They're going to find the site and go through anyway. But I think one of the things that, it's a bit speculative, but I think, the numbers kind of support this, is Google Shopping, having it just come up for brand is a credibility builder, right? When people actually see it show up in Google Shopping.
Yeah, I mean, they're seeing your product's image right there, your photo, and
Yeah.
it's above everything else. It's the first thing they'll see before even they see sponsored text search ads, right? So it's a pretty big credibility builder for the brand. And I mean, let's be honest, when you start scrolling down, you look at your organic results for your brand, you're going to have other sellers trying to push other brands, right? So
Yeah.
they click on your shopping ad, they're going to go straight to your shopping page and your cart. They're
Yeah.
not going to get bombarded with other ads potentially or other products or information that may be against your product, right? So,
Yeah, and I mean, God, this brings the whole conversation of, no longer looking at direct ROAS on channels and focusing on MER. And I think we'll have to do another episode on that one of these days, because I think that's one that
Pandora's box.
Oh my God, it's Pandora's box, and it's tough to get your head around, right? Especially when you start really digging into it. But yeah, that's a whole other can
Could
of
talk
worms.
for hours on that one.
Yeah. So look, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, after talking to you, I think we're at a place where, obviously PerformanceMax is where Google Shopping wants everybody to be. Have they made any sort of hints at when and if and when they're going to remove Smart Shopping?
No, I mean, I don't think there is a timeline for that. It's still an option. We can create a campaign today and be on Smart Shopping. It won't force you to go to Performance Max. It's more of the legacy campaigns, things that you've had in the past. They then force you to go to Performance Max, but you can easily revert that, right? So I don't know if they're ever going to. I think that some advertisers prefer to have the control, right? And you hear, I mean, you see in the groups talking about this, and it's really 50-50 split. Some people just absolutely are refusing to go to Performance Max.
Yeah.
Maybe because they feel that, that their job is on the line, because if Google can make all the decisions, why do you need a marketer anymore, right? So the other 50% are like, it's worth exploring, and it makes sense. It makes sense that Google has I mean, you got to think about this. Google is not out there just to get your money. They want you to be a long-term client, right? They want you to be successful, so you spend more. And so it would be counterintuitive for them to just kind of burn your money and burn all the bridges, right? So,
well, it would, and I mean, the fact of the matter is I heard the number. I can't remember what it was, but it was high. Like the number of people that start campaigns on Google and then shut them down. It's like, 80% plus, because they don't make money off them. And Google's got to realize, like, these people could make money. They just don't have the skill set, the experience, the knowledge to do that. And if they can
to be fair, nobody will have more knowledge than Google does.
Exactly, right?
No way to beat that.
Yeah. So if you can train it, I mean, we're at this tipping point with AI now to really make it smarter and outperform humans. Why wouldn't we, right?
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, that would be amazing.
And I can only imagine as they bring in more AI features into this is very early days, right? Like they're starting to now, you can actually create ads within the asset groups that are sort of automated. These are ads that are created based on the content it finds on your landing page, but it's not truly using GPT-4 to write ad copy. And so when it starts doing that, and you're able to give your brand logo, and it then creates banner ads, I think that's going to be just a revolution on that.
Well, I mean, you and I have had this conversation before. Is right now everybody's using GPT-4 and all the different tools that are using GPT-4 or OpenAI or whatever to create ads, and it's producing ads and it's doing a good job of it, but it's producing it just by scanning what's out there on the internet. It doesn't actually know if the ads that it's learning from are the most effective ones. But, when Google now takes their own AI and says, okay, here's all the highest performing ads, here's all the lowest performing ads, here's all the middle, learn from this, and now right based on the actual ones that perform the best, all of a sudden, we're not going to be able to outperform it.
That's right. I mean, as powerful as GPT-4 is, a lot of people are just manually using GPT-4 right now. They're telling it what they want. They're telling it based on their understanding of what they want.
Not on real data.
Imagine when machine can actually learn and figure out what it needs, not what the human wants, right?
Based on metrics.
That'll be really cool to see. Bringing the data results, incorporate that into the decisions of how do you write ads and what ads need to be written and what assets need to be created, right? Like maybe it's just AI video. All of a sudden, AI is just making video ads for you and throwing them on YouTube and adding them to PerformanceMax automatically. That's the thing. The next evolution of this, and it's going to happen quicker than we think.
Oh, for sure. So another interesting thing that we learned when we first moved over to PerformanceMax, we didn't have the ability to negative keywords, right?
That's right.
And then what happened?
Yeah, so I mean that was the biggest frustration because a lot of our shopping campaigns relied on negative keywords, right? Because otherwise Google is going to go out there and compete on terms that are really not relevant to your brand or terms that are just too expensive and you just don't want to be competing in that space. I mean, thankfully, we had a Google rep that was involved with us that was able to tell us, hey, by the way, we can actually add negative keywords on the back end. And so we were able to do that through a rep. I think that sooner or later, they're going to have to bring that into the forefront.
But this is what pisses me off about all the platforms, be it Google, be it Facebook, is it's at least 2-tier, probably multi-tier, depending on how much you spend. But we learned once we hit over, I think, that $100,000 a month, all of a sudden we were upgraded to their team that really actually knows what they're doing. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, if you've got negative keywords, we'll manually enter them for you. But that sucks because you've got all these small guys that are fighting it out, trying to figure it out, that are overspending on on keywords that they shouldn't be spending on, and they don't have the ability to negative.
And Google's pitch on that is that it doesn't matter. You shouldn't have to negative. PerformanceMax smart enough to figure out what those keywords should be, right? and I used to just say 100% that there's no way that's the case, but I'm starting to see some truth in that. Some of our more powerful performance campaigns now are getting to a point where they are like you can see that it's no longer bidding on certain keywords. It's just
yes.
Right?
But my point is you have to frickin', as a new guy, you've got to go in there and spend all the money to figure it out, right? If I'm coming from a smart shopping campaign, you forced me into PerformanceMax, I know what my negative keywords are. Or if I just started up, I know these aren't the keywords I want to show up for. I have to pay you to bid on them first to learn. Like that's right. BS.
You
right?
got to spend money to let the machine learn what it needs to do. Unfortunately, that is the truth. But I think that I already see on the platform on the interface there is a section for negative keywords. But you just can't link them to a PerformanceMax campaign manually. It has to be done through a rep. I'm sure if you go through the lower tier support, they can eventually get that done.
Good luck.
But it's we wouldn't even know about this if it wasn't for having a rep.
Yeah. For sure. And that's what I'm saying. So for those of you who are running these and maybe haven't had access to that rep, if you want a negative, go push some buttons and see if you can get somebody to do it for you, because the ability does exist there, right?
And great point that you bring up there, because the PerformanceMax campaign doesn't give you the visibility of keywords like you used to be able to get on a standard shopping campaign or a standard search campaign where you can actually see all the search terms. PerformanceMax simply creates these keyword clusters. And it says, okay, the people searching for your product most probable to buy, they're in these clusters, and it gives you a bunch of keywords and keyword titles, but it doesn't give you specific search terms. So even if you wanted to, PerformanceMax is not going to give you the keywords for the proper data for you to make the decisions on what your negative keywords should be. So if you come from a smart shopping campaign or a smart search or even a standard one, yes, you have a lot of knowledge because you've done that for so long. You'll be able to pull together what the keywords are. But if you're brand new and you start just in PerformanceMax, you won't even know what the underperforming keywords are because it doesn't give you that visibility.
Yeah.
which is, it sucks as a new marketer. You won't be able to really understand unless you go and do the manual work to figure out what is it that the keywords are not working.
Yeah. So curious, are you able to, and because I look at the reports as a whole, you look in the detail. Are we able to also measure attribution from not just Google Shopping listings, but all the sort of tertiary other
Yep.
things?
Yeah, so it gives you impression share on each one of these assets that it's running, so you can actually see individual. The problem is that their data driven attribution model no longer looks at just one channel, right? It doesn't say that the person bought on search, then therefore 100% of the attribution goes to search. It looks at all these combined into one sort of number, right? It
Okay.
says, okay, it knows that people saw your YouTube ad or your display and then it saw your shopping and converted. Therefore, all these have an impact in conversion. So yeah, it gives you the data, but it doesn't necessarily separate the conversion metric on each one of these channels.
Gotcha.
But it
Okay.
knows it was a touch point, right? It
Yeah.
brings that in as a touch point and it gives a certain weight of attribution.
Okay, so now let's talk about kind of how to make your listing stand out, right? Like at the end of the day, you create your feed, you submit it, they scan it, they pull up, they come up with their description, right? How do we optimize that?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's sort of like, I'm sure there's some terms of service that you're not supposed to do certain things, but everyone's doing it, right? Like
Yeah.
keyword stuffing, like the way that you see on some Amazon listings, you really shouldn't be doing that on shopping campaigns. It should really be the product name. But there's always an opportunity to add a little bit more of an extension to the product name, which
Yeah.
might make you stand out. If you're selling a product that other vendors are also selling, and you want yours to stand out, that's one way to do it. Just add a little bit more to your title on your Google Shopping feed. It's using that data as well for keyword decisions, right? So it's you're giving it more data. But the most I think I found the description you put on your landing page and the description you put on your feed are so important. That's where you can optimize and bring in a lot of keywords in there that you want to target. But ultimately, Google's making the decision, right? It's looking at the data, it's looking at the feed, it's looking at your landing page, and it's deciding what keywords are relevant to that product.
Yeah. And this is where that they're sitting on AI that's maybe not GPT-4 yet, but it's pretty damn close. If they're able to scan and come up with all the, semantically related keywords and stuff like that, they've got some serious intelligence sitting behind that.
And that's why it's so important when I see brands that have like a very plain Shopify page with very little information about their product, and it might work okay for regular search. I think for when you go to PerformanceMax, you really got to add more data in there because Google's making the decisions on your product and what your product is relevant for only by the content that you're putting out there, right? So you can't just make the decisions before, which is based on a human reading your page and making the decision to buy. Now you actually have to add enough content in there that the machine can also understand what your product is about.
Right. So now let's talk about some of the other things that you can add. I mean, we've got shipping stuff, we've got ratings, we've got reviews, all that kind of stuff. What are some of the key ones there that we should be focusing on?
Yeah, and they all matter. At the end of the day, you don't understand how much data Google is actually looking at on your customer level. So when you submit attribution data back to Google that says, okay, this is the customer that bought it, this is the order number, this is the dollar amount, all that information Google is then using, right? It's actually looking at how much the person paid for shipping. It's looking at the shipping method they chose. It actually looks at the tracking number if you provide that to Google. So it's able to actually calculate delivery times. And all of these things are ranking factors for Google, right? If it sees that your competitor is delivering the product in 2 days and it's taking you 6 days, it's going to give your competitor an advantage of display. And so you have to be, first of all, you got to make sure the data is being fed. A lot of feeds don't have that data integrated. So you got to have a product schema set up on your site. You're going to have on your checkout, your thank you page, you're going to have to feed some of that data back to Google because then it will use that to your advantage. It will always give advantage to shops that have that data versus not, right? So if you have a competing product, competing brand that is feeding all this information to Google reviews and all that, they're going to get ranked faster. They're going to show faster or more often.
So when you're dealing with, because we deal with a site, as you know, that's in the just sort of my own little side hobby passion in the mountain bike space, right? And it's one thing. So when we're dealing with our health brands, those are unique brands, right? So they'll show competing brands, but not somebody else selling the exact same product, right? But when you're in an industry where there's other people selling the exact same product, on Amazon, it always seems that lowest price wins buy box, right? Like,
Yes.
It almost seems irrelevant, the other stuff. If you're the lowest price, you're winning the buy box. Is that the case with Google Shopping?
Unfortunately, it is. In a lot of ways, it is. They're going to favor people that are doing sales. They're going to.
Yeah.
That's number one. So if you have a sale flag on your feed,
Mm-hmm.
that's very important. In fact, some people recommend even doing just a sale in perpetuity. So you have the product always discounted. But ultimately, yeah, if you're the lower price, you're going to get visibility. If a person searching specifically for that product, right,
Mm-hmm.
and there's 6 sellers, the sellers with the lowest price will show up first.
And this is
now
this
it may
is,
not be on the first button, but they'll be there on the first fold.
in the first fold. And this is what's interesting when you're dealing with, I mean, in our health business, we've got, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 SKUs. I can't even remember. We've got a lot of SKUs. But when you're dealing with other like big stores, I mean, in the cycling, we got 2,000 plus different SKUs in there. And it was interesting. So I was talking with our partner in that runs that, the retail side of that locally. And I was like, well, he said, we're not moving any of these kits, right? And I said, well, have you looked at our pricing? And it was interesting because we were priced not much, like $10 more than the other competitors there. Everybody was on sale, but we were $10 more. And I said, just drop it a couple dollars less than theirs. Not even a lot, just a couple dollars less. And like the next day, we started sales were rolling in, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people look at it as a sort of a Google Shopping set and forget, but I think you've got to be really monitoring where you're at in terms of pricing when you're in a more of a commoditized, but where other people are selling the same products, right?
Yeah. The great thing is that Google does give you some tools for that. The Google Merchant Center has a price competitiveness analysis where you can actually see where you stand in your competition. It will give you like a ranking of green, yellow, or red. If your products are not competitive at all versus some products are not competitive, you can actually click in there and you can actually see where your price stands. The most important part there is to make sure that you're feeding UPC data, right? Because ultimately Google is only relating these products by UPC. So if you don't have the UPC barcode number, manufacturer part number, whatever it might be that Google can then go and reference back, you might not even be competing for some of these products, even though your product name matches perfectly. It's still looking at some of these other elements. But yeah, Google Merchant Center gives you a ton of data on that for you to kind of figure out, do you have a shipping price issue? Do you have a product price issue? And shipping plays a big role here as well, right? Like people there are offering free shipping and free fast shipping are always going to get a priority. No different than the way Amazon works, and it gives you priority.
Are they going to get priority over someone with a lower price?
I think it's a total that matters in the end.
Is it?
Right?
Okay.
They'll look at what's going to cost for this person to buy this product and ship. And so, is that cheaper than the one with the sale or not?
Right. So, so we're talking Google Shopping. Let's talk about the Google Merchant Center for a second, right? Like, I mean, when do we even go there? Like, what kind of insights does it give us that we don't actually get from our actual?
Yeah, I mean,
Google
for our
Ads
business,
account?
our business is pretty simple when it comes to what we do. There's not a lot of vendors selling the same. It's not a commodity like some of the other stuff. But we go there. I go there often to look at price competitiveness is one thing for sure. The other one's feed issues, right? Like a lot of times we had an issue. All of a sudden, our shopping ads just completely disappeared. They're not serving anymore. And on Google Ads, you can't tell what the issue is. You have to go in Merchant Center to find that your feed expired, or or there was an issue uploading your feed. So I mean, that's the main reason why you end up going there, is to make sure that the health of your feed is maintained, right? Make sure that you have products that are rejected. That's where you're gonna find why they're rejected. If you need to appeal a decision because of something, that's the place to go, right? That's where you maintain your products. If you're an e-commerce vendor though, and you have thousands of products that you're selling that other sellers are also selling, the Merchant Center can be a pretty powerful tool to kind of understand search trends. So you can go in there and you can actually see, okay, give me all the top search brands in the motorcycle space, and it will give you a listing of all the top search products and top search brands. So it's sort of like a research tool that allows you to then go, okay, I need to source these products. I'm not selling these, so I'm going to source and find out where I can get these from. So from that perspective, it's also very powerful to understand what products you should be marketing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's we've been talking about Google. Before we wrap up though, let's talk about Bing for a second, right? Like there's Bing Shopping, of which we've been unceremoniously booted out of recently after 4 years, and we're like, what?
After so many years, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're just like, okay,
but
bye.
now we're back in, are we not?
We are. With a new account.
With a new account. Like, guys, the more time I spend, I've been doing this for 26 years now, ad platforms, and especially today, like, I mean, conferences, we talk about it, like everybody, even mainstream products, like accounts get banned and it's just a constant rotation, pop up, banned, pop up, unless you're selling something just like, sports equipment or something like that. If you're selling anything that they might consider even the slightest bit controversial, oh my God, what a pain in the ass.
And once you get put into that flag, it's almost impossible to get out of it. You can argue. I argued while I was setting up a second account. I was arguing with the original account, trying to get it back. And you just get stuck in these cycles of just people there just data entering stuff and just following what the AI is telling them to do.
Our decision is final.
That's right. And okay, no problem. And then you argue back and they say, okay, no problem. We're going to submit it again to our review team. And then 2 weeks later, sorry, our decision is final. We just keep going in these cycles. And it's like almost not worth to even argue at that point. Thankfully, in my experience, they don't really ban the domain name or your website.
No,
right? They just ban
this
your
is what
account,
I don't understand. Like in the early days, I remember when Google used to ban you, you had to like frickin' just about change your name, and like you could not even have an IP address in the same neighborhood. Like, and they would figure that out. And now they're just, I think they're just like, all right, whatever, just let them start a new one, right? Like,
and find a way back, right?
But I was blown away. 4 years of running that account, and just out of nowhere, funk, and you're like, what happened? But okay, that being said, we've run a lot on Bing and we're starting back up on Bing. But how do you find Bing compares to Google? Well, obviously, it's a small percentage traffic wise, but ROAS wise.
Return ad spend is strong there, but it is a very dumb platform in a lot of ways. There's nearly the amount of like automation and things that PerformanceMax is able to do and find the right targeting. You're going to be limited on Bing for sure, as far as what you can even do, as far as making changes to the way that their smart shopping campaign works. And it's a much smaller segment, but it's worth being there. It's very easy to launch, right? Because you can just take your Google Shopping feed and bring it into the Bing Merchant Center. Yeah. So you can copy it, or your campaigns can be copied over from Google. So it's a one-click thing to launch. So everyone, I recommend to be there, but don't expect too much from it. The spends are going to be a fraction of what you get you're spending out of Google. But I mean, there's still depending on your market and the demographic that's buying your product, Bing may be a more powerful
sure, it's an older demo. It's affluent.
Yep. It's the default search engine on Windows, right? It may be something that they're going to see, right? So you want to be there for sure. But be mindful as well. That's organic search is very different on Bing as well, right? So you may already be ranking well organically for your brand, and you may not even need to do paid search there, or for some of your products, right? So that's something to keep in mind, because you may not rank at all on Google, but you might be number one result on Bing, right? You kind of want to watch for that before you jump into spending money.
Yeah, their algo's definitely different, and it's all about to change anyway as they start rolling out the GPT-4 and chat and stuff like that into it. And so it's funny. I was on a forum and people were like, there were some people talking about Bing ads and stuff. Like, has anybody seen their results go up? I mean, their traffic has shot up. Apparently, their traffic's up by X amount since they rolled out the the GPT-4 search and stuff like that. But they're like, our sales haven't moved. I'm like, yeah, that's because it's all just the it's the 200 million nerds that just want to go play with it, and they're not interested in buying a new baseball bat, right? Like,
and it really is just a chat box right now, and I'm really curious to see what all these search engines are going to do as far as how to bring in the AI conversational search with the ability to actually run you proper ads, right? Because right now it's not. It's not really relevant.
we've talked about this. I honestly think Microsoft has forced Google into a bit of a corner that they weren't ready for, because how do you integrate advertising into AI?
You just can't. Yeah.
Like Google makes money by sending people to other people's websites, right? Like that's really where they make their money. And if all of a sudden AI and the other problem is AI really can't make product recommendations.
No, it's going to trust data that's biased, right? So it's
100%.
really hard to. I don't understand how that's ever. I'm sure smarter people than us will figure it out, but right now I don't see it. I think that the traditional search that we see as today is still going to have to exist in one way or another. You know, it's like that whole zero-click thing, right? Like zero-click search. Sure, for that it helps. If you're searching for a recipe of something, maybe that's the way it works well. You know, if you're searching for an answer for a very basic question, maybe it works. You know, but beyond that, when it comes to products, I just don't know how it's ever going to incorporate sponsored placements.
But the problem I have with that zero-click search where it's giving answers is all of the people that have gone out there, created amazing content to attract clicks from Google are now, you know, what was the frickin' point, right? You used all of our sites to train your AI, and now you're not sending anybody our way.
No, and most times when we see these snippets that they've had for a while now, you know, it's before AI, before conversational search, the snippets weren't necessarily the first result either, right? So they're picking up from like the fifth result that wasn't even like obviously not the most engaging one because it's on fifth position. And then they mix it with images from the position 12th, right? Like they just the data that they're giving out
the snippet was crap.
Yeah, it's crap, and people are trusting it. That's the problem, right? Like a lot of times, I've talked to my wife about this, right? We do a search on Google, you see the snippet, okay, that's the answer, and you go, hang on a second, no, that wasn't the entire truth. That was a part of a snippet from an article, but it wasn't the whole story, right? And unless you click through and you really dig into it,
you're going to get it. Well, but that's where GPT is going to could improve those snippets because it has the ability to look at an entire article and summarize it in a better way than just grabbing a couple snippets and just puking it out on the screen.
That's why I say I think for zero-click searches, for whatever topics are related to that do well on that space, maybe GPT-4 will be the answer, or some sort of a GPT variation. But for stuff that you need to really read into product recommendations, you really can't. I mean, I don't see how they're ever going to do that.
Yeah, fair. Awesome. Well, we are at, I was shooting for 45 minutes. We're at 48 minutes. So we're going to call this one a wrap. But man, thank you very much. I always enjoy our conversations. And this is a beauty. I mean, this is the conversations him and I have every day, right? So
thanks for having me. I'll come back and have more chats with you about, we can dive into open Pandora's box and talk about attribution. Looking forward to that.
Oh my God. Yeah, we actually do need to have an attribution conversation. Talk about MER, talk about how we've changed how we look at our media buying over the last 4 or 5 years. As attribution has just pooped itself, really.
And I think it's a struggle that a lot of brands are going through right now, trying to figure out how to deal with that.
God, huge.
And it's what made the biggest difference for us, right? The ability to spend that we have now is because of understanding what that attribution looks like for brands.
Yeah, 110%. 110%. All right, sir. Thank you very much. We will do this again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. This is another episode of the E-commerce Expert Show. As per usual, well, first of all, if you like what you heard, please leave me a rating and review. And remember, the only way this stuff works for you is if you apply that final essential ingredient to all the information we shared with you here today, and that is action. So pick just even one thing that you learned here today and go forth, put it into action and get a result. And when you do, please share your results with me because that excites me. That really does. So on that note, this episode's a wrap and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the E-commerce Expert Podcast. If you liked what you heard, make sure to give us a virtual high five by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the show on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to check out our website at ecommerceexpert.com for show notes and bonus materials. See you in the next episode.